Welcome back to another deep dive into the world of George R. Martin's epic universe. Today, we're tackling one of the most fascinating debates in Game of Thrones fandom. When it comes to unlikely partnerships that captured our hearts, two duos stand head and shoulders above the rest. On one side, we have the legendary hedge knight Duncan the Tall and his royal squire who would become King Aegon the Fifth Targaryen, known simply as Egg. On the other, we have the fan favorite pairing of Arya Stark and Sandor Clegane, better known as the Hound. Both partnerships represent some of the most compelling character dynamics in the entire saga, but which one truly deserves the crown as the best unlikely duo? Let's break it down. Before we dive into the comparison, we need to understand what makes these pairings so special in the first place. In Martin's world, where political machinations, betrayal, and brutality are the norm, genuine connections between characters feel like precious gems. What's even more remarkable is when these connections form between people who seemingly have no business being together. A towering, common-born hedge knight and a prince. A trained killer child and a scarred, cynical warrior who murdered her friend. These are not your typical buddy comedy setups. Yet somehow, through Martin's brilliant storytelling, both in the books and on screen, these relationships became defining elements of the entire franchise. Let's start with Duncan and Egg, a partnership that predates the events of Game of Thrones by nearly a century. Their story begins in the year 209 after the conquest, following the death of Sir Arlan of Pennytree, the hedge knight who had taken young Dunk as his squire. Left with nothing but his master's worldly possessions and dreams of following in his footsteps, Dunk sets out for the tourney at Ashford. Along the way, he encounters a peculiar bald boy with unusual eyes who insists on becoming his squire. This boy, who introduces himself as Egg, appears to be nothing more than a common stable boy. But appearances can be deceiving in Westeros. Egg is actually Prince Aegon Targaryen, son of Prince Maekar, and through a series of tragic events and unlikely circumstances, he will eventually sit upon the Iron Throne. What makes Dunk and Egg's relationship so remarkable is the foundation it's built upon. From their very first meeting, there's a fundamental inversion of the expected power dynamic. Here we have Dunk, a man who likely wasn't even properly knighted by Sir Arlan, but claims the title anyway, paired with royalty. Yet, Egg chooses to keep his identity secret, shaving his distinctive Targaryen silver hair and serving Dunk faithfully. The young prince doesn't want the privileges his birth affords him. He wants to learn what it means to be a true knight, to understand the realm he may one day rule from the ground level. Dunk provides that education, not through any formal training or noble wisdom, but through his simple, honest approach to knighthood. Throughout their adventures, chronicled in The Hedge Knight, The Sworn Sword, and The Mystery Knight, we see a relationship that grows from mutual need into genuine brotherhood. Dunk is thick as a castle wall, as he himself admits, but he possesses an unwavering sense of honor and justice. He might not be the sharpest sword in the armory, but he knows right from wrong. Egg, meanwhile, brings intelligence, political awareness, and occasionally the weight of his royal name when situations become truly dire. Yet, he's careful about using that power, understanding that Dunk's lessons about humility and honor are more valuable than any royal decree. The beauty of their partnership lies in how they complement each other. Dunk provides protection and a moral compass, teaching Egg that true knighthood isn't about tourneys and glory, but about defending those who cannot defend themselves. Egg provides guidance when Dunk's straightforward nature might lead them into trouble, using his education and understanding of noble politics to navigate complex situations. When Dunk's honor demands he challenge Prince Arya to a trial by combat, it's Egg who reveals his true identity to save his knight's life, showing the depths of loyalty that has developed between them. When they face the conspiracy surrounding the Blackfire Rebellion at White Walls, they work in perfect harmony, Dunk's martial prowess combined with Egg's sharp mind. What's particularly fascinating about Dunk and Egg is that we know how their story ends, or at least we know the broad strokes. Duncan the Tall becomes Lord Commander of the King's Guard, while Egg ascends to the throne as Aegon V. Their friendship, forged on the roads of Westeros, endures throughout their lives. Duncan remains at Egg's side, his most trusted protector and advisor, It's a partnership that spans decades, surviving the transition from hedge knight and squire to king and lord commander. They die together, along with most of the Targaryen royal family, at the tragedy of Summerhall, where Egg's attempt to hatch dragon eggs goes catastrophically wrong. Even in death, they remain united. Now let's turn our attention to Arya and the Hound, a partnership born not from choice but from necessity and circumstance. Their relationship begins with blood and betrayal. In season 1 of Game of Thrones, Sandor Clegane, serving as a member of Prince Joffrey's guard, rides down and kills Micah, the butcher's boy who had been Arya's friend. This single act of violence earned Sandor a permanent place on Arya's kill list. The idea that these two would ever become traveling companions seems absurd, yet the chaos of war in Westeros has a way of creating strange bedfellows. When the Hound kidnaps Arya from the Brotherhood without banners, his intentions are purely mercenary. He sees the young Stark girl as a ticket to wealth, planning to ransom her first to her brother Robb, then to her aunt Lisa. Arya, for her part, views him as a captor, a murderer, and an obstacle to her own plans. She literally tries to stab him on multiple occasions. She fantasizes about killing him in his sleep. The animosity between them is real and raw. This isn't a warm and fuzzy buddy adventure from the start. It's a tense hostage situation where both parties barely tolerate each other's presence. But something remarkable happens during their journey together through the war-torn Riverlands. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, they begin to understand each other. The Hound, despite his cruel exterior and violent past, starts acting as Arya's protector. When they encounter danger, he puts himself between Arya and her would-be attackers. When they need to survive, he teaches her practical lessons about the brutal reality of their world. Not the fancy water dancing of Bravos, but the ugly, effective combat necessary to stay alive. He mocks her, certainly, but there's a grudging respect that develops. She's not like other noble children he's encountered. She's fierce, resilient, and refusing to play the victim. Arya, despite her hatred for the Hound, begins to see beyond the monster who killed Micah. She witnesses his vulnerability, his fear of fire stemming from his brother's abuse, his cynical but often accurate observations about the hypocrisy of knights and nobles. The Hound doesn't pretend to be something he's not. He doesn't wrap his violence in the flowery language of chivalry. He's honest about what he is, and in the twisted world they inhabit, that honesty becomes almost refreshing. She learns from him, absorbing his lessons about survival, about reading people, about when to fight and when to run. Their relationship reaches its crescendo after the Hound's brutal fight with Brienne of Tarth. Left broken and dying on a hillside, the Hound begs Arya to kill him, to grant him mercy. She stares at him, this man who has protected her, taught her, traveled with her, but also the man who murdered her friend. In that moment, Arya makes a choice that defines their entire relationship. She doesn't kill him. She doesn't grant him mercy. She simply takes his silver and walks away, leaving him to his fate. It's an act that's simultaneously cruel and compassionate, hateful and caring. She removes him from her kill list, not through murder, but through abandonment. What makes this moment so powerful is its ambiguity. Did Arya leave him to die in agony as punishment? Or did she leave him because, despite everything, she couldn't bring herself to kill someone who had become important to her? The show and books leave this deliberately unclear, and that ambiguity speaks to the complexity of their bond. When they reunite years later at Winterfell, there's clear affection between them. The Hound asks Brienne about Arya with obvious concern. When they journey to King's Landing together in Season 8, their banter has the comfort of old companions. And in their final scene together, the Hound actively saves Arya's life, urging her to abandon her quest for vengeance and choose life instead. So now we come to the heart of the matter. How do we compare these two legendary partnerships? Let's break it down across several key categories, starting with the foundation of trust. Dunk and Egg's relationship is built on a fundamentally solid base. While Egg does hide his true identity initially, this deception comes from a place of wanting to be judged for who he is rather than his bloodline. Once the truth is revealed, there are no betrayals, no fundamental breaches of trust. They are, from early on, genuinely looking out for each other's best interests. Their loyalty is mutual and unwavering. Arya and the Hound, by contrast, begin from a place of deep distrust and animosity. The Hound killed Arya's friend. He kidnaps her. She tries to kill him. Their entire relationship is built on a foundation of violence and coercion. Yet, somehow, that rocky beginning makes the trust they eventually develop even more meaningful. They don't trust each other because they should. They trust each other because they've been tested in the crucible of survival and come out the other side. When we look at personal growth, both partnerships demonstrate remarkable character development, but in different ways. Egg's journey with Dunk teaches him humility and the reality of life for common people, lessons that shape him into a king who genuinely cares about the small folk. Dunk learns about the complexities of politics and leadership, growing from a simple hedge knight into someone worthy of commanding the king's guard. Their growth is mutual, educational, and constructive. Each makes the other better. Arya and the Hound's growth is more about confronting darkness. Arya learns that the world isn't black and white, that even killers can have humanity. The Hound, through his time with Arya, rediscovers pieces of the man he might have been before his brother's abuse and Lannister service corrupted him. Their growth comes through conflict and pain, but it's no less real. The duration and depth of their partnerships tell different stories. Dunk and Egg spend years together, possibly decades, when you account for their continued relationship into Egg's kingship. We see them in 3 published novellas with more stories planned, and we know they remain close until death. Their bond has time to mature, to weather storms, to become something truly profound. It's a lifelong friendship. Arya and the Hound, by contrast, travel together for perhaps a year, maybe less. Their intense experiences are compressed into a relatively brief period. Yet, the impact they have on each other is immeasurable. Sometimes the deepest connections aren't the longest ones. Their brief but intense partnership burns bright, and when they reunite years later, it's clear that time hasn't diminished what they shared. Looking at mentorship dynamics, both pairings feature clear teacher-student elements, but the roles are fascinatingly different. With Dunk and Egg, Dunk is technically the master and Egg the squire, but Egg often serves as the teacher, especially in political and intellectual matters. It's a partnership where wisdom flows both ways. The Hound serves as Arya's teacher in survival and combat, while Arya, perhaps unknowingly, teaches the Hound about redemption and the possibility of something beyond violence. Neither partnership fits into a traditional mentor relationship, and that's part of what makes them special. The question of social barriers is fascinating in both cases. Dunk and Egg represent perhaps the most extreme social divide imaginable in Westeros. A common-born hedge knight of questionable legitimacy and a prince who will become king. Yet Egg deliberately chooses to blur these lines by serving as a squire. Their partnership works because Egg wants it to work, because he values what Dunk represents over his own royal status. Arya and the Hound cross different but equally significant barriers. He's a member of the Lannister household, sworn to the family that destroyed hers. He killed her friend. She's the daughter of the man who stood against everything the Hound served. The social and personal barriers between them should be insurmountable, yet they find common ground in their shared status as outcasts and survivors. When we consider their impact on the larger story, both partnerships have significant ramifications. Dunk and Egg's adventures directly influence major historical events. They're involved in stopping Blackfire conspiracies, preventing rebellions, shaping the political landscape of Westeros. Egg's kingship, influenced by his experiences with Dunk, brings reforms intended to help the common people. Their story is foundational to Targaryen history and the events that eventually lead to Robert's rebellion and the War of the Five Kings. Arya and the Hound's impact is more personal but no less significant. Their journey is crucial to Arya's development into the faceless assassin who ultimately kills the Night King. The Hound's final confrontation with his brother, influenced by his time protecting Arya, brings closure to one of the show's most enduring storylines. The question of heroism is interesting with both pairs. Dunk is presented as genuinely heroic despite his rough edges. He stands up for the weak, defends the innocent, and tries to live up to the ideals of knighthood even when it costs him. Egg supports his heroism while tempering it with wisdom. Together, they represent an idealized version of what knights and kings should be. The Hound is no hero, at least not in any traditional sense. He's a killer, a cynical survivor who openly mocks the concepts of knighthood and honor. Yet, through his actions, particularly in protecting Arya, he displays heroic qualities he would never claim. Arya, meanwhile, straddles the line between hero and anti-hero, seeking vengeance but also protecting the innocent. Their partnership explores darker, more morally complex territory than Dunk and Egg's adventures. The emotional resonance of these partnerships affects audiences differently. Dunk and Egg provide a sense of warmth and camaraderie. Their adventures, while containing danger and political intrigue, have an underlying optimism. They're good people trying to do right in a complicated world and generally succeeding. Their friendship is comforting, aspirational. It makes you believe that loyalty and honor can triumph. Arya and the Hound, conversely, grab you by the throat. Their relationship is messy, painful, beautiful, and brutal. It's realistic in ways that hurt. The complexity of their feelings toward each other, the way they simultaneously care for and resent one another, feels deeply human. When the Hound urges Arya to abandon vengeance in their final scene together, it's one of the most emotionally devastating moments in the entire show precisely because of how unlikely it is. From a storytelling perspective, both partnerships serve crucial functions. Dunk and Egg's stories provide a window into Westeros history, showing us the world in a different era while exploring themes of class, honor, and duty. Their adventures are somewhat self-contained, each novella telling a complete story while contributing to their overall character arcs. They're prequels that enrich our understanding of the world and the Targaryen dynasty. Arya and the Hound's partnership serves as a crucial part of Arya's character development during the main narrative. Their journey together represents a specific phase in her transformation from noble daughter to deadly assassin. It's a bridge between her innocence and her darkness, showing us the complexity of her character. The cultural impact of both partnerships is worth considering. For book readers, Dunk and Egg are beloved characters whose stories provide a different flavor of Martin's world, more focused and intimate than the sprawling main series. The upcoming HBO adaptation, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, is highly anticipated precisely because fans are eager to see this partnership brought to life on screen. The novellas have their devoted following, but they haven't penetrated popular culture in the same way the main series has. Arya and the Hound, on the other hand, became instant fan favorites on the show. Their scenes together are among the most quoted and gif-able moments in Game of Thrones. The chemistry between Maisie Williams and Rory McCann, combined with sharp writing, created something magical that resonated with millions of viewers worldwide. Let's talk about the dramatic moments that define these partnerships. For Dunk and Egg, there are several pivotal scenes. The trial by combat in the Hedge Night, where Dunk's honor puts him in mortal danger and Egg reveals his true identity to save him, showcases the depths of their bond. The resolution of the water dispute in the Sworn Sword demonstrates their ability to work together, combining Dunk's martial prowess with Egg's political acumen. The uncovering of the Blackfire conspiracy in the Mystery Night shows them operating as a true team, each playing to their strengths. These are moments of triumph, of friendship proving stronger than adversity. For Arya and the Hound, the defining moments are rawer. The scene where Arya laughs hysterically upon learning that her aunt Lysa is dead, meaning the Hound can't ransom her, is darkly hilarious and shows how absurd their situation has become. The Hound's fight with Brienne, with Arya watching, represents a clash of would-be protectors and forces Arya to make choices about her own fate. The moment where she leaves him dying on the hillside is perhaps their most iconic scene, encapsulating all the complexity of their relationship in one silent, brutal exchange. And finally, their reunion at Winterfell and the Hound's urging Arya to abandon vengeance provides emotional closure that few could have predicted. One cannot discuss these partnerships without addressing the question of found family, a theme central to both. Dunk and Egg become each other's family in a very real sense. Dunk, an orphan from Flea Bottom, finds in Egg not just a squire but a brother, a purpose, a reason to be better than he thought possible. Egg, despite having blood family, finds in Dunk the kind of unconditional acceptance and genuine friendship that his position often denies him. Their relationship transcends the master-squire dynamic to become something deeper and more meaningful. Arya and the Hound's found family status is more complicated and perhaps more interesting because of it. They never openly acknowledge their bond as familial, and in many ways, they resist it. Yet the Hound acts as a twisted father figure or older brother to Arya, teaching her to survive in a cruel world. Arya, whether she admits it or not, comes to view the Hound as more than just a captor or travel companion. Their family by circumstance and survival, bound together by the shared trauma of war-torn Westeros. The humor in both partnerships deserves mention, as it's crucial to making them memorable. Dunk and Egg have a lighter, more playful dynamic. Egg's quick wit often pokes fun at Dunk's lack of education and simple-minded approach to problems, while Dunk's earnest confusion provides comedy without malice. Their humor comes from genuine affection and the comfortable teasing of close friends. Arya and the Hound's humor is darker, more biting. The Hound's cynical observations and crude comments clash with Arya's fierce determination, creating friction that's both tense and darkly funny. Their best exchanges have a sharp edge, with insults that could draw blood if they were swords, yet even this aggressive banter reveals their growing connection, the way they've learned to communicate in their own particular language. So, after this exhaustive examination, which partnership deserves the title of Best Unlikely Duo? The honest answer is that it depends on what you value in a relationship and in storytelling. If you prioritize longevity, mutual respect, and positive growth, Dunk and Egg are hard to beat. Their partnership represents the best of what friendship can be, transcending class and circumstance to become something truly noble. They make each other better people, and their influence echoes through generations. If you value emotional complexity, dramatic tension, and raw honesty, Arya and the Hound have the edge. Their relationship is messier, more painful, but perhaps more realistic in its portrayal of how damaged people can still connect and change each other. Dunk and Egg give us hope that honor and friendship can survive in even the darkest times. They show us that true nobility comes from character rather than birth, that loyalty and honesty can forge bonds stronger than steel. Their story is fundamentally optimistic, showing us the world as it could be if good people held power and maintained their principles. It's aspirational fantasy at its finest. Arya and the Hound give us something different but equally valuable. They show us that redemption is possible even for those who seem irredeemable, that connections can form in the most unlikely circumstances, that families aren't always bound by blood. Their story is realistic fantasy, showing us the world as it is, brutal and complicated, but with glimpses of humanity shining through the darkness. Perhaps the real answer is that we don't have to choose. Both partnerships represent different but equally compelling explorations of friendship, loyalty, and the unlikely bonds that form in Martin's richly detailed world. Dunk and Egg give us the fantasy we wish for, while Arya and the Hound give us the reality we recognize. Both partnerships have earned their place in the pantheon of great fictional friendships, each perfect in its own way. What we can say with certainty is that George R.R. Martin's genius lies in his ability to create these complex, layered relationships that feel genuine despite the fantasy setting. Whether in the relative optimism of the Dunk and Egg novellas or the brutal reality of the main series, he crafts partnerships that resonate because they touch on fundamental human truths about connection, loyalty, and the transformative power of genuine friendship. Both Dunk and Egg and Arya and the Hound stand as testaments to this gift, reminding us why we keep returning to Westeros again and again. In the end, debating which is better is less important than appreciating what each brings to the table. These unlikely duos, separated by nearly a century of fictional history but united in their impact on readers and viewers, both deserve recognition as among the finest character partnerships in fantasy literature. Whether you prefer the warmth of a hedge knight and his prince or the friction of a young wolf and her hound, Martin has given us riches beyond measure. And isn't that what great storytelling is all about? creating characters and relationships so vivid, so real, that we can't help but care deeply about them, arguing about their merits and celebrating their triumphs as if they were our own. So there you have it, our deep dive into two of the greatest unlikely duos in the Game of Thrones universe. Which partnership speaks to you more? Are you Team Dunk and Egg, inspired by their loyalty and honor? Or are you Team Arya and Hound, drawn to their complex, messy, beautiful dysfunction? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Game of Thrones content. Until next time, remember that in the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, but along the way, you might just find an unlikely friend who changes everything.